I've always been curious, what is an average day like for you?
No such thing, right? I mean, no 2 days are alike, but every day starts with reading papers. And I admit I'm an old-fashioned guy, so if I can, I'll read the real paper. If I can't, I have online. But I will read 6 newspapers or access points for information before I pick up the first phone call.
Curious, which papers?
Okay, so Financial Times, Wall Street Journal, Star Tribune, USA Today, because that's a very popular paper for travelers, New York Times, to see what the other side thinks, and then the American Banker, which is our local industry publication. But for me, I get in early, but I wake up early and I read all that because I think if you're not informed on all the day's news at the very up to the minute, you simply shouldn't make your first contact.
That's a great point. I don't do that some days, and I feel like I get in a meeting at 9 o'clock or 11 o'clock and somebody says, yeah, such and such, and I was like, oh.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it, we're already halfway around the world, and the world's been awake for hours by the time we get up, so it's important.
That actually brings up another question, and that's, do you turn it off? You know, when you think about your personal life, and it is a global situation now, and as you've pointed out in the story about banking becoming more global, how do you turn it off and have that personal time to just be alone?
My wife would answer that better, but I'm really good at that. What I do is I make sure that anybody that's really important to me knows how to get a hold of me, so then I don't have to go check to see if they're trying. With that gives me the permission to step away. I have an amazing team, I always have, wherever I am. I try to make sure the team feels the respect that I give them by saying, look, you don't need me unless it's an absolute crisis, and then you can find me. So that gives me permission to really take the time and enjoy. I think my 3 kids, which are all adults now, would say that I achieved an 85 to 90% attendance rate at all their important functions. It's actually lower than that, but they think it's that, so it's good. And I've been really, my wife coaches me to make sure that when we're all in wherever we are, and I also don't mix pleasure with business. So I'm all in wherever I am, but I don't mix the two.
So you turn your BlackBerry off?
I do.
Okay.
And I don't look at it just before bed. When she traveled with me many years ago, I came back from a dinner, we did, and I pulled up the BlackBerry, or in that case, the old laptop, and she says, what are you doing? I said, I'm just trying to catch up before I go to bed. She goes, you're not catching up, you're never caught up, and now you're going to have that as your last impression. Keep it closed, it's not going to change. Again, they'll find you if they need you, sleep well. And I've taken that to heart from that time forward.
Great. When you look back over the years with the bank, what was the one moment in time that you can think of that was like your most happy moment?
Wow. Lots of happy moments at the bank. I would say that the first time I got promoted when I wasn't expecting anything. I get this phone call. I'm in a branch in Southern California. This very large bank I worked for, the 5th largest bank in the country, the CEO, not anybody but him, called and said, I've heard good things about you. I want to start a small business banking program for the whole company. I want you down here in the next 2 hours because I want to meet you and see if you're worthy and qualified. And that was a change agent moment. I wasn't seeking it. I wasn't trying for it. It didn't even exist. And through good fortune and a whole lot of good timing, somebody gave me a call and we got off from there.
Great. When you also look back, the other side of that coin is, what was the one moment in time where it was the greatest challenge, where you stepped back for a second and thought, boy, that took my wind out of me. How do I deal with this? Yeah. And how did you deal with it?
September of '08. Right down the street. When the markets really started to collapse on that particular one October day, we went into crisis mode for about probably 45 days, and that was every hour, all as much except for sleep hours, we would gather in the same conference room and just see what happened in the markets, what happened to our customers, what happened to the rates, what's happening overseas. Every single night I would watch the Bloomberg Japanese and Chinese Asia opening market reports to see what was going to wake up to. And then our nights were about 4 or 5 hours. We even shifted some of the time so that there was almost no time somebody wasn't awake. That's how we handled it, by spreading the influence, spreading the time and energy, and giving each other kind of a space. It's like on a professional team, you got to take some time off, get somebody on the bench, get some water. And I'd say that went on longer than I could ever have hoped. I never want to revisit that again.
What did you do with the intelligence? Was it a matter of reaching out to clients and other things?
It was everything. So we reached out to clients. Mostly the press gave us the most current news from being online or television. And our clients were actually great advocates, because a bank is only a reflection of all of its customers, and our customers are all over the world. So we could literally ping them like they were, as I said, they were like overseas reporters for us, and we could really get correspondent news at any time. But it's the data collection of that and having your senior people evaluate what they're looking at to say, now, do we have to adjust what we're doing? That will be the first, second, and third most challenging times in my life.
Was it strange at all to try to talk with people who weren't in the industry about what you were going through at that time or what you had just gone through afterwards? You were like, yeah, man, there was, how did you deal with that?
It's a great question, but in this case, this is when the stock market was down to like 6,000 and the whole world was crashing, so everybody was in that mode. In fact, they were much less interested in our needs than they were their own first, but in many cases we are their needs because we're their bank. So I didn't have that connection where we were going through an industry issue that nobody else really experienced. But I suspect if that were the case, I probably would have stuck closer to my bank peers just because we have a common language and a common fear. Yeah.
Great. Is there anything else that I should have asked you that I didn't?
What's this for?
This is just for up on
It's not for U of M or?
No.
Oh. Not about Hall of Fame, but about business.
Just about you, your professional life, what you've learned over the years. When you think about the public listening to you or seeing you up on our website.
Gotcha. I guess I would tell you that the thing I've learned in my old age now is to risk being vulnerable. Put yourself out there, emotionally and intellectually, and try things you're not exactly sure how they're going to do. Trust people you're not exactly sure you have that long of a relationship. Believe something is possible that isn't present. Sometimes you'll be wrong, most of the times you'll be right, and all the time you'll be smarter for it. And to me, that's probably the best lesson I could give younger people as they're getting into business, because there's a temptation to be especially careful. And while you want to be careful on things like integrity and honesty and all that, there's strategic opportunities to be a little more risk-interested, risk-capable. And I would say vulnerability is a well-rewarded risk.
When was the first time that you did that?
Long time ago. It was when I was going to school full-time at night, and I was working at the bank as a teller, and I had this manager come over to me and say, I think you ought to be in management. You look like interested, so why don't we put you in a training program? And I said, I don't have any more time in the day. She says, well, we're going to do it here, and then we're going to start sending you around. And to me, that was completely vulnerable because I was planning, as you probably know, to be a math professor. So it was out of the league, and I only took it because it was better than the job I had. It was progressive to where I was, but not with the intent to do this for a living. But as it would turn out, that is a point of vulnerability and a willingness to trust, and it turned out to work.
Great.
Who knew?
Yeah. Well, thank you again for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dale. Thanks for this part.